So what about Asuka and Rei? By no means having these two solves all defensive situation. I'm not saying this is the perfect combination. Depending on boss mechanics, we'll have to make adjustments on the team as usual. I'll be talking about the teams and boss rating with them in a different video. For understanding their damage potential, I would look at the previous video I have made about the Fire Core team. For this video, I'll be talking about the basic things on building them and their primary role in the team. As I've shown in the previous video with Asuka, Rei, and Modernia, Asuka can do decent damage especially with crappier devices or if you play at 30 FPS where machine guns cannot exert their full potential. However, even with that, she still has limitations where she's not affected as much by other buffers because part of her calculated damage includes her own multipliers on skill 1, which gives massive attack, and burst skill, which gives massive attack damage percentage. Which means that when there's other buffers in the team that buffs those stats, then she would not benefit as much in there. Asuka's damage potential will shine the most when there's enemy with core, or if there's a hidden core behind that can only be penetrated by pierce. In addition to that, if there's many pierce opportunities with parts, then she will also deal pretty good damage. For Asuka, she can be in the situation of being a tank when the boss targets the highest attack. With her skill 1, she can almost guarantee to have the highest attack unless there's other units in your team with higher attack scaling or way significant difference in investment. For example, if your Modernia is core 7 with a bunch of attack overload lines while your Asuka is only 0 limit break with no other stats or investment at all, then yeah, Asuka will likely not be doing her job as a tank. In order to make Asuka a tank for the situation of the boss targeting the highest attack, you'll have to make sure that your Asuka is well invested. If you plan to use her as a tank, skill 1 and burst skill ends up being very important. Skill 1 ensures that she has the highest attack and also higher damage on neutral bosses, and burst skill increases her damage and also gives her more lifesteal capability. There would also be a higher emphasis on making sure that you have her doll invested and overloaded with max ammo and attack as well to make sure that she can tank properly and lifesteal back. It can get difficult for her to top herself back up otherwise. With minimal and base investments on Asuka, Asuka will struggle to heal herself back up with just her burst alone without the stats and overload lines to back it up. Naturally, skill 2 and elemental overload will also be important in higher importance when fighting on element advantage. I'd put equal degree of priority on these 3 overload lines and all skills for Asuka. In the long term, attack might feel less importance as we build full proper teams though, but again, I'd just put them all in high priority. For doll, I would put significant importance on doll for Asuka. This part actually hasn't been emphasized enough, and actually when I look at other people or guides talking about Asuka, I feel like I haven't actually seen it talked about or mentioned, if at all. Actually, I would even say it's good to have her doll upgraded to SR Rarity especially. SR Rarity provides damage taken reduction and cover HP increase, which becomes extremely important for her tanking. On top of that, Assault Rifle dolls has bonus core damage, and not many Assault Rifle can take advantage of that because of their poor hit rate. With Asuka's burst skill, she can enjoy part of its core bonus. It provides her additional stats as well, and it will be crucial especially when doing level capped content where we need more ways to increase our stats. For Cube, I would go Resilience on her. For Rei, she does feel more of a support with some DPS in her more than anything. While her shield can actually be used to prevent some AoE single instance damage, the issue is it's only affecting fire units. So if your team isn't fully fire, then she's not exactly covering everyone, and the non-fire units ends up consuming their own cover if the boss is doing some AoE. So her shield acts more as an additional HP for whoever is getting hit. In this situation, it's typically either Asuka or Modernia if you're doing the Fire Trio team if the boss targets the highest attack. So what Rei provides to the team is more of a little bit of damage from her skill 1, a little bit of buff from her skill 2, and some damage buff and a little bit of defensive capability on her burst skill. She does a little bit of everything, but doesn't excel at it. If anything, I would say her main role is more of a damage buffer to the other fire units. As such, I would put heavier emphasis on her skill 2 and burst skill, which is her main support skills, and then skill 1 is secondary. All skills though are good still to max out, as eventually in the long-term future, we will primarily use her for fire elemental raids. So eventually I would skill everything up. In the same degree as Asuka, I would go for max ammo, elemental damage, and attack on overloads with ideally at least 2 max ammo lines as standard machine gun build. Dolls are more for stats more than anything to give more buffs from her skill 2 and provide more shield, so it's not as high of a priority. For Cube, I would go with Bastion. So in terms of pulling and dupes, here's my final thoughts about these two units. If you plan on only using them for fire elemental raids in the future, one copy is more than enough as you're utilizing them more as fire DPS. An argument can be made that because they're also DPS that duplicates are good on them, but the issue is their DPS has a lower ceiling compared to the recent trend of a top tier DPS, so this scaling for duplicates wouldn't be as good as likely other future units. If you plan on using Asuka as a primary tank and want to entertain building no healer team in the future, having duplicates of Asuka would then benefit you more. If you're familiar with how Tove has been used as a solo tank in raids, then you can think of Asuka the same. With regards to Rei, duplicates will help her give more buff on her skill 2, do slightly more damage, and provide slightly more shield. The issue is she doesn't excel at any of these and she ends up being mediocre at all of them. There's also a part of her buff from her burst that doesn't scale from dupes, so you can still get mileage from her with just one copy. So if you want to pick which one to pull, here's the reason for pulling either one. For Asuka, she has a better out-of-the-box DPS than Rei. She has Pierce and can perform better if we can take advantage of it. She is more FPS friendly, and for people with crappier devices, they would see her perform better. She can tank if the boss targets the highest attack, however do note that this needs high investment. She only buffs the core, but she does buff regardless of who bursts. Regarding Rei, she has the potential to have better damage scaling from other buffs compared to Asuka. Although, when saying this, I'm kinda stretching it. She has effective buffs even if no core. She has better buffs for off-burst DPS like Modernia or other fire units that do not rely on their burst for majority of their damage. She does have AoE burst also, but yeah, again, I'm kind of just trying to stretch here on looking for the positives on her. Yeah, I can't really think of anything else. You might say that the shield is good, but like I mentioned before, it only affects fire units with her shield. So if it's a boss with AoE that would like to block the mechanics, the other non-fire allies would still get affected and you'd have to cover them still. So her shield does feel more just like an extension of HP for the far units. But yeah, out of the box, Asuka seems better on paper and based on the current units out. I can't really speak for the future though. In any case, that's my thoughts on build for Asuka and Rei. But yeah, that's the build video. In the next video, I'll be talking about putting them in raid situations. Don't forget to leave that like, comment, and subscribe for that YouTube algorithm. And I'll see you guys next time.